Let's take you to Bloemfontein, where the Department of Social Development, DSD, and the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, are defending the accessibility of the SRD grant before the Supreme Court of Appeal. Government is appealing a High Court ruling that found aspects of the grant application system unlawfully excluded millions of eligible applicants. SASSA says it has introduced measures including free call centers and self-help kiosks to assist people struggling to apply. Let's get an update from SABC News reporter Kamogelo Seekoei, who was covering that throughout the day. Good evening to you, Kamogelo. So how did it go? The one side goes into that hearing, being the civil society organizations. They go into that hearing, with the wind behind their backs, having won everything they wanted in the High Court. The other side determined to overturn that order. How did it go as far as the arguments are concerned?
Good evening to you, Tulas, and good evening to the viewers as well. Well, as you've rightly said, the other half of the people who were here in court today came into the courtroom obviously knowing that they have a win, and the others are trying to defend themselves from the High Court judgment in the North Gauteng. So today was quite a long day to begin with, hearing from all the involved parties in the matter. Of course, we started this morning with the Department of Treasury just outlining its position in this matter, telling the court that the state has essentially, ensured that it does cater for people who are poor in the country, saying that this grant to begin with was not in existence until the COVID-19 pandemic, and it was the state itself that decided that the poor and unemployed, especially young people of the country, should be given some kind of reprieve, just to be able to support themselves throughout the COVID-19 pandemic deep lockdown, and that this particular grant was essentially supposed to be not a permanent grant, but something that was going to assist them only through the COVID-19. We also heard from the Department of Social Development, obviously together with SASSA, also saying that they have taken measures to ensure that there is access, but as we know by now that the advocacy groups are saying that there has not been enough that was done, and there's still a lot of people that are excluded from accessing this particular grant. But I just want to bring in the executive head of IEJ, Gillard Isaacs, just to talk to us a little bit about, the proceedings here today. Just perhaps start by just giving us an impression, of what you think. We saw at some point the judges being quite engaged, particularly with the senior counsel representing the Department of Social Development and SASSA. Just your impressions.
Yeah, it is clear that these judges have read the papers and are engaging in a robust way. We're feeling upbeat about this. What I think we see is the court grappling with various currents of this case. On the one hand, the court is clearly indicating through its questions that it sees many measures that have been instituted as implementing barriers to access, right? A court probed on the online-only application, on no new information on appeal, on biometric verification, needing not just a smartphone but one's own smartphone. So there was a clear sense that the court saw these measures as unfair limitations. At the same time, the court seemed to want to accept National Treasury's argument that wider access is unaffordable, and seems to want to accept that's being made as a kind of good faith in the best interests of the country. What I'm not sure has sufficiently landed yet is that those measures, those exclusionary mechanisms aren't there by accident. Those measures have been put in place precisely as a way of limiting access in order to try and save money and stay within arbitrarily set budget caps. And I hope that in the thinking which they do after this, that penny further drops.
The advocate obviously representing the IEJ today spoke to the fact that since inception of this grant, when we talk about issues of budget and of course affordability of this grant to the wider society, that since its inception, the budget has not been fully spent. So just talk to us about that.
Yeah, the first year it was 44 billion, and it's been cut gradually to 33 billion. That's both because the value has stagnated. It's also because the means test, the amount which you have to earn under, has stagnated, which means that less and less people would be earning under that as inflation means incomes grow. But what it is indicating is, in our view, that these deliberately implemented exclusionary mechanisms have been working, right? What it also indicates is that budgets aren't, and the National Treasury would like us to have this notion of a budget as somehow externally fixed, right? That there are these external circumstances and therefore we have just this envelope and absolutely no more. But what this shows is in fact that's not how budgets work, right? That there is a constant series of reallocations, jigging, underspend somewhere, overspend elsewhere, and that there is supposed to be this level of flexibility within the system, and just as that flexibility might accommodate a underspend by lowering the allocation, so too if we find that actually there's 11 million people who qualify, not 8.5, one should allocate extra funds to ensure that all those which qualify have access.
Thank you so much for your time. That was Gillard Isaacs just talking to us, of course, about the proceedings here in the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. Thulas, at the center of this, of course, are the people who probably need this money more than anything. And the difference between getting the 370 and not getting it is whether a person is able to put food on the table or they're not able to do so. And this is something that was highlighted quite robustly by the IEJ legal representative in court today, saying that even the 20 rand that was added is something that is commendable because the amount of money that these people receive is quite low and it does not really meet the requirements, but it is something that is assisting a lot of people to be able to support themselves. With that, is back to you.
Kamogelo, thank you for that reporting. It sounds like a day of vigorous and rigorous legal debates before the justices of the Supreme Court of Appeal in one of those cases that are truly of great consequence in our country's socio-economics.